Yesterday, the Iran peace meeting was off. Yikes. Okay. So then you say, well, what's the lay of the land now? The ceasefire gets an extension as the Straits of Hormuz still blocked. And the answer to that was immediately yes, Straits of Hormuz are still blocked. So then the question comes, well, are they going to try and run the blockade? Is anybody going to try and something funky or... So then we have the answer to that already overnight. I guess daytime for them, this was going on. But for us, this was what was happening while we were sleeping. Great rundown here from Fox and Friends on Fox News.
Breaking news out of the Middle East. Iranian state media claiming the country attacked 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and 2 of the vessels are apparently now in the control of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
This is Axios reports that President Trump is giving Iran 3 to 5 days to unify behind a ceasefire counteroffer. That's getting their side on the same page, let alone getting us on the same page with them. Lucas Tomlinson joins us now with the details. Lucas, what's the problem with Iran?
Well, Brian, just hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire to Iran indefinitely, it appears that Iran is already breaking it, opening fire on at least 3 vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and commandeering 2 of them. And President Trump announcing the ceasefire yesterday on Truth Social. I'll read it to you, Brian, and everyone. It says, quote, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded. Now, early this morning, the first attack by Iranian gunboats took place in the Strait of Hormuz, causing...
Yeah. So that's sort of the summary there from Fox and Friends this morning. So they extend the deadline 3 to 5 days, which why would you even say a range? Just say the biggest number. So the deadline's been extended 5 days. And I don't know what's going to change on the landscape between now and then. Because the one answer we don't have yet that we're about to get, that's going to be real interesting and might determine the next move here, is what happens when Iran runs out of places to store their oil? What happens if Iran has to go several days without being able to use the Straits of Hormuz? What happens if we shut down their oil industry for the most part? Look, I understand some oil can get out, but what are the numbers? Like 96% of their oil comes out of that Karg island. So for you people who are like, well, they can still ship it over the land or through the Caspian Sea or other pipelines. Well, I guess they can, but they haven't. It sounds like they don't have the capacity to do it. So when they run out of places to store the oil, they can't sell the oil anymore. They're blocked off from the outside world. They can't get any more missile parts, at least via boats from China and whatnot. What will happen then? Well, you got to think that we will probably see the results of that in the next, 3 to 5 days, which I think explains the timeline perfectly. That's what he's doing. He's going to see what happens and how they react. When I say he, Trump is going to wait and see how Iran reacts after the Straits of Hormuz are blocked, after their oil is shut down. They don't have anything else coming in. Because the one thing you and I are both waiting on is, when are the Iranian people going to rise up? I remember back when the invasion happened of Ukraine from Russia. Boy, even leftists in America couldn't wait to hand the Ukrainian people assault rifles fast enough. Are we not doing the same for these guys? I'd be willing to drop. I'd rather drop that off than pallets of cash. Hell, I'd rather drop that off than bombs, really. Find the people that are willing to go shoot all the Ayatollahs until we can get somebody that's just wearing regular pants with a zipper and a button fly or something. But we have to be patient for 3 to 5 more days. I don't know what the incentive is for Iran to surrender if they can survive the Straits of Hormuz being closed. I don't know what their incentive is to surrender if their oil can be shut off and they can still retain power. Because The one ugly thing history teaches you is for the people that are really intent on having power, they'll hold on to it at any cost. They don't care how much their people suffer. They don't care how much the economy suffer. They don't care if they're decimating the country. And I try to explain this to other well-intentioned people who are, I don't know, newer to politics. And when they say, I don't understand how people can go to D.C. and then just throw all their principles out the window and start voting for all the stuff that they said they don't believe in. Well, it's a little different for them. Remember, whether or not the budget gets balanced is very little difference in your immediate life. But would you care about balancing the budget if it meant your family got $5 million to vote for the unbalanced budget? Yeah, it really is that simple. And so for a lot of people, everyone understands money. We all like money. Some people just feel about power like the rest of us feel about money. Like that is their intent. And I don't think I have that gene. I'm not always trying to tell people what to do. I don't want to be in charge of anything. If I was in the military, like, can you make me a ninja where I just go off by myself and be a lone wolf thing? I'm not real good in groups. But I think the 3 to 5 day deadline extension for Trump is exactly the kind of leg stretching time frame that we're looking for to see how they handle the Straits of Hormuz being closed and their oil being cut off and the economic collapse that's necessarily going to follow with it. But now we had the markets that were rocketing and they were very happy on the good news that the Iran war is going to be wrapped up. If the Iran war is not going to be wrapped up, what's that going to do to the economy? If this thing can get stretched out for 2, 3, 4 more months, are we going to clock a recession before the end of the year? We'll talk with Spencer McGowan, host of Net Worth Radio, next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, if this Iran war thing doesn't get settled pretty soon, it is going to affect the economy. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. My next guest is probably going to have some deeper insights on that. Spencer McGowan, host of Net Worth Radio here on the weekends, of course, from the McGowan Group. Spencer, I think if we don't wrap this up soon between the uncertainty, the bad news, the high gas prices, this could trigger a recession. Well, I saw a survey last week, and it's rare to have this, but economists were surveyed, and 49% of them said there's probably going to be a recession before the end of the year. 51 said probably not. And so that doesn't sound like a very scientific practice we have going on, the economic predictions world, because half of them are going to be proven wrong by the time January rolls around. And for me, my answer to that is I don't know. How long does this Iran war last? If it keeps going, then yes, we'll have a recession before the end of the year. If it can wrap up in a month or two, then my answer is no. Yeah, exactly. Well, where's all this coming from? If the economy's not growing gangbusters, why are the the quarterly reports so good? So we're already feeling AI in the GDP because I have anecdotal observations of people starting to incorporate it a little bit into their business, but I didn't think it already show up on a balance sheet. I guess so. So if you're planning on retiring in the next year, does this level of uncertainty cause you to want to pause and maybe postpone that? Well, of course, on that one. All right. The other thing we're watching, in the financial world here is the end of the Jerome Powell era at the Federal Reserve. He's going to be replaced by some dude named Marsh. I don't know anything about this guy. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert and this guy's biographer. All I care about is he going to lower rates when he gets in. Right. I hear you. All right, we're talking with Spencer McGowan from Net Worth Radio. You can hear him on the weekends here on WBAP, 4 o'clock on Saturdays, and again at 2 o'clock on Sundays. What you got coming up this weekend, Spencer? Well, we need to build some power plants there, Spencer. Sounds great. All right, I look forward to hearing it. This is Spencer McGowan from Net Worth Radio on the James Show. Appreciate it, sir. All right, and then if you want to catch him at his day job, the McGowan Group over at the Crescent, just walking distance from here. Coming up next on the James Show, are you familiar with the Southern Poverty Law Center? Certainly you've heard it mentioned in some news or in talk radio before. They just had a big indictment dropped on them by the FBI, and it makes you question, just, is there any racism really left in the country, or is all of it just astroturfed? It's worse than you think. You'll hear it next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. We had some hailstorms last weekend. If you have any doubt about your roof, you need to call Blue Ribbon Roofing. You know, if you go out there and you don't see any dents and you don't see any shingles missing, but your roof is over 20 years old, you should probably take advantage of the free roof inspection anyway. What happens is John's going to come out there. He'll throw up a ladder on the side of your house. He runs around, takes pictures, explains to you everything he found. Like, there's a little flashing here that's starting to separate, but it's not going to need some repair yet. We'll just keep an eye on it. Yeah, over here, looks like all your shingles look good and up to date. And you can tell by the color that they haven't faded much. So I can tell it's only like 4 or 5 years old. And he was just doing sort of almost an autopsy on my roof. And then he comes down to you and explains to you what he found, if there needs to be any repairs, what your options are. If there's no repairs needed, then he just gives you a high five, leaves you with a packet of material, and goes on about his way. If you do need some help, he can help you explain the different options. And the big one, they can help you with the insurance claim. So if you have any doubts about your roof right now in Texas during storm season, go to blueribbondfw.com. Just how much is racism on life support in America? You're about to find out. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So, are you familiar with the Southern Poverty Law Center? Before I play you the Kash Patel audio, let's go back. John Stossel had done an interesting package on how the Southern Poverty Law Center has transformed into something that looks pretty far from its mandate here. This is a report that he put out 3 years ago. This comes from July 18th, 2023. The whole report was 5 minutes. I edited the snot out of it and got it down to 3 minutes for you.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, based in that building in Alabama, calls itself the premier group monitoring hate groups and other extremists. Looking at their map of hate groups, you'd think hate groups were everywhere. I once believed what the center said. Well-meaning people still do. Apple gave them $1 million. But what donors don't know is that today the center smears good people.
The presence of radical Islam.
This Somalian woman speaks out against radical Islam. For that, the center put her on its list.
We can stand together against hate.
The center also calls the Family Research Council a hate group.
The definition of a marriage is what it's been for 5,000 years. It's the union of a man and a woman.
I often disagree with the council myself, but do they belong on this hate map?
When they don't agree with you politically, they're going to list you as a hater.
But once you become a hate group, you're a target.
Developing now, word of a shooting at the Family Research Council there in Washington.
One man was so enraged by what the Southern Poverty Law Center said about the Family Research Council, he went to their headquarters to kill people.
A man shot a security guard in the arm.
Fortunately, that guard stopped the man before he could shoot anyone else.
He told the judge that he was there to kill as many of us as possible because we were a hate group.
The center also smears the Ruth Institute, a Christian group that believes gays should not have an equal right to adopt children. When the Southern Poverty Law Center put the Ruth Institute on its hate map, the Institute's bank cut them off.
We've determined that you're an organization that promotes hate, violence, harassment, and so therefore we're not doing business with you.
The Ruth Institute and the Family Research Council are still on the hate list.
Whatever they're doing, it pays.
It sure does. Years ago, Harper's Magazine reported that the center was the richest civil rights group in America, one that spends most of its time and money trying to make more money. They promised to stop fundraising once their endowment reached $55 million. But when they reached $55 million, they changed that to $100 million, saying that would allow them to cease costly fundraising. But when they reached $100 million, they didn't stop. They collected $200 million, then $400 million. Now they've got $730 million, yet they still smear people to raise more money.
Much of which is in offshore accounts, Caymans and places like that.
How do you know?
Oh, we look at their 990s.
And it says Cayman Islands?
Yeah.
Now the Southern Poverty Law Center calls groups that simply oppose sexually explicit content in schools anti-government extremists. Moms for Liberty and Moms for America are on the hate map because they dare do things like seek school board seats to try to stop districts from disregarding opinions of parents. Give me a break. The center puts them on the hate map, but not Antifa, the hate group that beats up people on the right. The center's become a hate group itself. It's now a left-wing, money-grabbing slander machine.
All right, so that was John Stossel 3 years ago, Southern Poverty Law Center. We've long known that they're nothing but a political activist organization exploiting the suffering of minorities with false accusations of racism and hatred and bigotry against gays and women and all the good stuff. We've known that. Well, it just got a little bit worse. Kash Patel had a press conference last night, the head of the FBI, and said they've got some new charges that they're dropping on the SPLC.
What we're here today is to announce the Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million.
So you mean to tell me that if you donated money to this organization whose sole purpose was to dismantle hate groups, they turned around and gave that money to people within these hate groups? Now, their excuse, the Southern Poverty Law Center, has come out and said, no, we had paid informants embedded within these groups. And really, paid informants embedded with it? What did you need to be informed on? You're not an investigative body. You're not a law enforcement body. And they weren't turning around handing over all the information they got from the informants. What the hell would you need an informant for? That's a lame excuse. It doesn't make any sense. And when we say paid informants, it's not like they had some innocent people who were on their side who were thinking, man, we need to go dismantle this group. And they managed to infiltrate it, not believing what they believed. No, these were people who had been in the group already. There's no conversion. There's no time where they're like, I believe this with my entire life, but all of a sudden I'm going to change my mind and start getting money from this left-wing group and helping them out. It doesn't make sense, does it? 800-288-9227. More audio from Kash Patel where he explains how racism is just astroturfed in America. It's all been fake. All the riots, Black Lives Matter, the Klan, and even the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville was fake. You'll hear it next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Racism really is on life support in America. The left is just giving it chest compressions right now. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. And three funny guys give you stories you don't hear anywhere else. But the Southern Poverty Law Center says that they're out there to dismantle racism. We find out from an indictment yesterday by the FBI that they have been funding racism. They've been subsidizing racism. And their excuse is so lame. We weren't giving them money and helping them plan their events. We were paying some of their leaders as an informant. That's right, just a confidential informant. Yeah, that's the ticket. Because what, you're doing a sting operation? What are you going to do, bust it? You don't need any more information. You've already declared them to be a hate group. What the heck do you need to get more information on them for? So it's not just that they made the payments. If everything's on the up and everything's cool and you're not doing anything unethical, why'd you go to so much effort to hide the payments? Kash Patel explains yesterday.
Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, they attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred.
And make no mistake about it, the Southern Poverty Law Center is not an unethical program acting in a vacuum. It is part of a larger cog, a larger machine. You know, ESG, the corporate governance standards that a lot of corporations have adopted over the last 10 years, some of them stopped dropping them. Well, the ESG would say, we are not going to do business with you if you support or are a hate group. And so a lot of these nonprofits, a lot of these charities, a lot of these political groups, a lot of these activist groups that were labeled as hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center were actually dropped by their bank. They were dropped by a lot of their clients. They were dropped by other networks of groups that were supporting them. So it wasn't like the Southern Poverty Law Center was just calling people hate groups and going on and whatever. There were real negative consequences. They were crushing people. Meanwhile, if you did business with a hate group, you were a bad person. If you were a bank that helped out the family, whatever, family research council, what was in that John Stossel package? You were a bad guy. Meanwhile, they're giving money to Klansmen. They're giving money to neo-Nazis. They're giving money to actual white supremacists. And so Kash Patel wrapped up his statements, started taking questions from the press yesterday, and the criticism was brought up about how he's handling the FBI, and the Atlantic wrote a story about how he's some kind of drunk who just gets all sloppy and can't even do his job and takes a whole bunch of time off, and he blows all that out of the water.
This FBI with this Department of Justice has dropped the murder rate 20 points. What that means is this FBI with this Department of Justice has captured 8 of the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the world, twice as many as the Biden administration did in its entire 4 years. What that means is this FBI has seized enough fentanyl off the streets to kill 178 million Americans, a 31% increase. What that means is this FBI and this DOJ has arrested 43% more spies in 14 months than the entirety of the Biden administration. What that means is this FBI has seen a reduction in opiate overdose deaths up to 20% alone. What that means is that we have found 6,300 child victims, 6,300 families have their kids back. That is a 22% increase from the Biden administration. I'm on the job. I'm the first one in. I'm the last one out. I'm like an everyday American who loves his country, loves the sport of hockey, and champions my friends when they raise a gold medal and invite me in to celebrate. I've never been intoxicated on the job, and that is why we filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit. And any one of you that wants to participate, bring it on. I'll see you in court.
All right. Since Pam Bondi got kicked out as Attorney General, the acting Attorney General is Todd Blanche. He went on Fox News last night in primetime after this press conference and was answering some questions and explaining some of the Southern Poverty Law Law Center case here?
Mr. Acting Attorney General, how did they get away with this for so long?
I mean, it's a great question. I said today during the press conference that we know that this investigation was opened during the Biden administration and then mysteriously closed. I really don't have any information about why it was closed. And then we started again last year, the FBI did, working with the U.S. Attorney in Alabama. And it's extraordinarily egregious. You just talked about it. But imagine a donor to the SPLC if they were told, by the way, we're going to give the money you're giving us to the Ku Klux Klan. Okay? Like, in some cases, over $1 million. I mean, it's incredible.
The crazy part about that's not a hypothetical. There were people that were donating money. Apple gave over $1 million to the Southern Poverty Law Center, thinking they were fighting the Klan. They turned around and gave some of that money to the Klan. That is wild. Now, their excuse on this is paid informants. We needed paid informants. Number one, no, you don't need paid informants to declare something to be a hate group. You had already declared them to be a hate group. Oh, you're trying to dismantle them? By what? Giving them $400,000 and helping them organize their rallies? Are you nuts? Is that how you dismantle racism? Give them 6 figures? Keep them going? So Todd Blanche responded to this informant's excuse.
Now, they say they're no longer using these informants in this way and that it was necessary because they had all sorts of threats against the organization, firebombing threats and other acts of purported violence. And that's why they had to use these informants. And to that, you say?
Well, to that, I say, for one, the indictment charges all the way through 2023. So I'm here to speak about what they're doing right now, but that indictment charges a long period of time through 2023. And second, and more importantly, there's no allegation or information in the indictment that suggests they shared that information with law enforcement. They have communicated.
They said they did.
Well, they have communicated when they so chose with law enforcement over the years. There's no information that we have that suggests that the money that they were paying to these informants and these members of these organizations, they then turned around and shared what they learned with law enforcement. To the contrary, or else we would have known from their own words that they had given this money to these guys, and we didn't know it.
So coming up next, you're going to hear what I just think is the coup de grace. The fact that money went from the Southern Poverty Law Center to help the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Now, this is super important because it has been an absolute flashpoint in the race relations discussion, because this is the one where the girl died, Heather Heyer. And the complaint has been, well, you have these violent white supremacists out there. They're out there just killing people for protesting. Turns out that they were there because the Southern Poverty Law Center helped make it happen. And the Southern Poverty Law Center was supporting both sides. Of course, ideologically, they line up perfect with Black Lives Matter and Antifa, but they were also subsidizing many of the groups on the other side of that. So the whole racial tension, the whole mob was AstroTurf on both sides as some sort of weird theater to make the rest of America think that we have a problem with racism and racial violence and white supremacy in America. It really is all fake. You'll hear Todd Blanche lay out the evidence coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So just how fake is all the racial controversy you see on TV? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And, you have to admit this is good news, whether you're on the right or you're on the left. Well, if you're on the left, it's not good news for your worldview or your preferred political party. But it is good news in the fact that if you thought this country was a hotbed of racism, this is huge evidence that it's not. If this was really a racist country, would the Southern Poverty Law Center have to gin up racism? Would they have to support racism? Would they have to help them organize and set up and pretty much erect the straw man for them to fight against? Would there need to be any support from the Southern Poverty Law Center? Isn't that great news? That real white supremacy is so few and far between it can't even stand up on its own. That should be great news. Left, right, indifferent. But the Southern Poverty Law Center was just dropped with a bunch of charges. An indictment was announced yesterday afternoon by FBI Director Kash Patel, and standing behind him was the interim Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche. And Todd Blanche went into a little more detail here because the indictment's a whole lot of pages and a whole bunch of internet ninjas already went through and were taking screenshots of the important parts. And people put together pretty quick that the Unite the Right rally, the one in Charlottesville, where the Heather Heyer died, the protester died, that was all AstroTurf. Both sides were AstroTurfed. And the Southern Poverty Law Center was behind it.
What about Charlottesville and the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally? Were they involved in that?
Yes. So what we allege in the indictment and what the grand jury found is that one of the individuals that they paid was one of the folks who helped organize that terrible event. And so so imagine what we're talking about, Laura. We're talking about an organization that actively came out and just screamed it from the top of their lungs.
So just so people understand watching this, did these informants in some cases, given the evidence you've seen, actually initiate what would ultimately be these activities? And obviously Charlottesville ended with a tragedy.
Well, we know that they were part of those. They were part of it. Whether they were the leaders or the initiators, that'll come out, I think, eventually. But what we do know is that the very entities that this group was raising money to go against are the very entities that they were taking the money in and paying to these entities and these individuals associated with those groups.
Wow. So now that we learned all that yesterday afternoon, guess how much coverage was afforded to this groundbreaking story on ABC News, NBC News, and CBS News, the big three networks? Guess how much? 0 seconds on last night's newscast. We'll see if they can do any better tonight. I wouldn't hold your breath. You'd think that's kind of a big deal, learning that the Unite the Right rally was just an AstroTurf campaign funded by the left to make the American people think that we actually do have a problem with white supremacy and white racism in the United States. We do not. I am tired of this myth. It is the most exhausting and just self-evidently untrue myth that I think we deal with now. I mean, besides men can have babies or DART's a good idea. But this idea that we're just ate up with racism. Were you listening? I think it was about 2 months ago when a guy called in and he was saying, yeah, this is a racist country. Well, what evidence do you have? Don't you think if this was a racist country, there would be one person in an elected office that if you asked him if he's a racist, he would say yes? Because there's not one. There's not one person in a position in Congress, in the Senate, in any of the state assemblies or state legislatures or state senates or the unicameral thing they're doing up in Nebraska. None of them. There's not one mayor. There's not one city councilman. There's probably not a dog catcher in Bunny Chip, Iowa that would admit to being a racist. In fact, after that show, check this out. I tried to find the survey where people were asked if they were racist. How many people self-identified as racist? You know, they don't even do the survey. The way they do the survey to find out how many people are racist is they ask them other questions, and if they answer wrong, they're just counted as racist. They don't actually ask, do you believe that people have inherent traits based on their skin that render them better or worse than other people? They never ask that. Why? Because I think the number would be close to 0. And I think you do too. And if this place really was just teeming with racism behind every corner. Would people lose their job for saying the N-word? There's a lady in Houston that just lost her job for saying the N-word, and she's Hispanic. So no, actually, this is not a racist country. We do not have a problem with white supremacy, even though your last attorney general said the number one concern about public safety comes from right-wing domestic terrorists. That's all a fraud. It's all a myth. It's all just a Potemkin village propped up by leftist donors, ironically, to make you look bad. Because there's enough people in this country that will see that, they will react emotionally, and they won't even consider what you have to say when it comes to governance because they already have pegged you as a racist. And it's all been fake. Should they go down for being a fraud? Absolutely. And if this is the case, I think ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, they should be able to be charged with fraud for calling themselves news. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Would you believe that race relations were better 20 years ago than they are now? Steven Crowder did a cool breakdown a few days ago on his streaming show.
Race relations under Barack Obama. We all thought, hey, at least we have a black guy as president. We can kind of move past that.
Right.
The exact opposite happened. Race relations, they were the worst in my lifetime. They took a nosedive. So the percent of Americans who thought race relations were good, 2009, was about 60%, more than 60. By 2016, it was 37%.
Jeez. Oh. Yeah, the more they dabble into racism, the worse it gets. Racism was almost dead in America. Barack Obama revived it, and leftist organizations and media outlets and academics and celebrities and musicians and politicians have kept it going on life support since then. Hopefully, this will be the first in many legs to fall out from under this dumb stool, this lie that America's racist. Coming up next on The James Show. After that, we're going to have to talk about another H-1B door-knocking investigation about immigration fraud in Frisco. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. hey, if I'm racist, shouldn't I have gotten a check from the Southern Poverty Law Center? I didn't get any money yet. I'm told I'm racist on a regular basis. If that's true, I'd have been paid already. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP, your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robinson. If they didn't already have fun with this on today's show, they'll be killing it tomorrow. The Southern Poverty Law Center bills itself as the premier anti-hate group out there. And it's not just a suggestion or a blog or a website. The American School Counselors Association has adopted their principles for whatever dismantling hate within our public school system. Banks have deplatformed and kicked off clients who were put on these hate lists. People have been attacked. There have been terror attacks where people have cited that the reason they attacked the Family Research Council is because the Southern Poverty Law Center said that they were a hate group. Meanwhile, the Southern Poverty Law Center secretly paid members of white supremacist and extremist groups, including the National Alliance affiliate, got $1 million. You know how fake this group is? They got $1 million from the SPLC, and you had never heard of them till right now. And you know, I never heard of them either. So it's not a real group. It's not a grassroots group. It's not something that just regular people have joined up and that's why they exist. They exist only because the Southern Poverty Law Center funds them. They paid over $300,000 to an affiliate of the Aryan Nations. They paid $270,000 to one of the organizing members of the Unite the Right rally. Now listen, their excuse is we need paid informants within these groups. You need to pay them $270,000 to give you information. What did you get out of that information? How did that help you? What was your return on investment there? Because it sounds like you're funding the actual organization. It sounds like the Unite the Right rally was depending on that. They paid $140,000 to the former chairman of the National Alliance. They paid $73,000 to more than one former KKK member. And the American Front president got $19,000. For info, you could have just paid him like a couple $100. Hey, what do you know? A couple $1,000. You had to pay $3 million to all these groups. It's just not believable. There is no problem with white supremacy in America. America is not a racist country. And if there is any racism going on out there, it's definitely not white racism. And it just makes you wonder, like, how fake is all of what you've seen on TV? All right, next on the James Show, I told you about this investigation, kind of a documentary that's coming out by a guy named Tyler Oliveira. We talked to one of the principals in his new documentary last week on the James Show. And some pieces are coming out here. And he does the easy thing. He does the Nick Shirley thing where you go find a whole bunch of businesses that are registered to one address, a ridiculous amount, and then just go knock on the door and see what happens. The difference is this isn't the Leering Center in Minneapolis with Somalis. This is H-1B abuse in Frisco with Indians.
There is a single company, Qubits Tech Systems LLC, with 8 LCAs, all from this residential home. Bunch of software developers here making $51 an hour.
Yeah, this seems legit.
Hi there, worksite inspection.
Hey, who is this?
Hi there, this is Tyler. I'm here to conduct a worksite inspection. Am I speaking to Hari Madiraju?
It's not.
Huh? Sorry, you cut off there.
So I'm not at home, so what is this? I'm in the office. Who is this speaking?
Is there another worksite that you're working from?
Yeah, 4425 West Airport.
West Airport? Okay, so there's no one working from the residential address here?
Why do they work for where is your home?
Excuse me?
Where is your home? Do you live in your home or do you live in your toilet or somewhere?
No, I don't live in my toilet, sir. So I'm only asking because the LCAs state that this is the address. Is that not the case?
No.
So you don't...
Go to workspace. Are you from government?
No, I'm not from the government. I'm conducting an independent investigation.
If you are not for government,
Yes?
work right now I don't have any people, but you can go to the workplace and work there.
All right. We'll take a look at your office. Thank you. Some attitude. Yeah. But why would this guy file 8 LCAs with the work site listed as his residential home? So we went to his office only to find a collaborative work site and his completely empty unit. No one in their office. Hari Madiraju finessed us. Let's give him a phone call.
Please leave your message for 214.
Classic. It's really just, it's that easy to find. The government is just throwing away your money, and it's just throwing citizenship at unqualified third worlders who are coming here and not assimilating, taking your jobs, taking welfare, taking your tax money, ruining your schools, ruining your Costco, flooding your parks, using your infrastructure. And Rodney's sitting in a Facebook message here. Facebook Messenger. It says, something funny in Frisco, Texas, where I've worked for the last couple years, is you have all these Indian restaurants that don't have no business. They don't have. I'm just reading what he wrote. Obviously a typo. They just got a sign out that says Indian restaurant, but there's nothing inside of them, and there's a bunch of them. They're all brand new, but they're all vacant in the last couple years. All you need is a front, and you can apply for H-1B and get anyone over here that you want. And apparently, of all the workers in the world, we only need them from India. You realize how just like on the face of it, this is obviously a fraud, an abuse, a scam. I don't even know if it's illegal, but it's definitely an abuse. Because H-1B, well, this is for if we don't have enough workers to fill, jobs, skilled jobs. And we posted it, and there's just no Americans that'll do it. And yeah, is that what's going on? Then how come they're all coming from one country? We don't need any people from, I don't know, like a Russia or a Ukraine or a Kazakhstan. We don't have a whole bunch of Romanians crowding the Costco in Frisco. No, just that one country. Yeah, you buy that? Because I don't. That doesn't make any sense. I know there's a lot of them, but there's other countries out there. And so, of course, it's being abused. It's being abused right in front of your face. And the reason so many people are scared to speak up against it is because they don't want to be called racist. And we just found out the whole anti-racist movement out there is just a facade as well. It's just it's a straw man. It's a Potemkin village. How long will it take for it to fall? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Because if we keep getting investigations like this between this guy and Mark Palaciano was in on that video, we got Sarah Gonzalez doing it, we got Kaylee Campbell doing it, we have all kinds of good little warriors out there doing it. You have to think eventually the tide is going to turn on some of this. Now, coming up next, Brandon Gill, a local congressman out of the Denton area, is catching all kinds of hell because he dares defend our culture. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. All right, stick with me, and I might have to read some of these emails by the end of the show. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. A lot of people got some strong opinions about the Southern Poverty Law Center being hit with an indictment from the FBI yesterday. Turns out these groups that they're supposedly fighting against, that they're taking money, they're taking donations with the auspices of fighting hate groups. Turns out they're funding them. And it looks like this whole Unite the Right rally, if it really was just a big theater that was supported by both sides were supported by the same group of left-leaning globalist kind of, I don't know the better word for it. Just Team Blue. How about that? The whole thing is theater. The whole idea that we got to watch out for white supremacists and domestic terrorists, all theater. That was pretty much one of the few examples they had of any violence that had been visited upon by an Antifa or BLM member from someone who wasn't Antifa or BLM. It's amazing. And I've always thought that, I don't know why the super leftist groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, like Antifa, like Black Lives Matter, like to act like they're so different from neo-Nazis and the white supremacists, because other than the racism part, y'all agree on almost every economic issue. Y'all agree on much of your statecraft and your preferred method of governance. Y'all are both economic fascists. Y'all both think that there should be heavy regulation of industry. Now, the industry should remain in private control, so you don't want pure socialism like a communist. But y'all both want heavy regulation. You both want green energy deals. You both want windmills. You both want, let's say you want to go down the list, vegetarianism. They're very pro-vegetarian. They like universal daycare for the kiddos, so you can go drop your kids off at the government facility and have the government raise your kids while you go be a good worker. They like universal health care. They like gun control. They like abortions. You're not that different, except for the race thing. You're not that different. I'm not really not that shocked that they're supported. I'm just happy it's finally gotten busted. I just want a hope. My last hope is that this squeezes through and actually embeds in the popular consciousness, because the beginning of the end of racism could be starting right now. Brandon Gill, congressman out of the Denton area, he's under fire for comments he made 2 days ago, which I think are quite self-evident, but some people who are just been trained to see racism and are hypersensitive about anything that could be perceived as white supremacists are losing their minds over this.
The whole reason why people immigrate into the United States, because our culture, I believe in many ways, is superior to other cultures across the globe. We've got to recognize that not all cultures are equal. They're not all equally compatible with America's governing framework. They're not all equally moral. They don't all have equal dignity. And we ought to recognize that bringing in third world countries where some lunatic is grilling a cat in an American park where children are playing around with is a culture that is incompatible with our own.
And it's a beautiful double standard that he's pointing out here, because why are 350,000 Haitians here on temporary protected status, the TPS status that just got renewed for 3 more years by the House of Representatives last week? Why did they renew that? Why do Haitians get to circumvent our immigration laws? Because why? For asylum reasons. They're seeking asylum. Why? Because their home country is so bad, so dangerous that sending them back there would be a violation of their human rights. And then at the same time, if you dare say, well, this country is clearly doing better than Haiti, you're a bigot? Remember the S-hole countries comment? Well, which is it? Are our cultures equal in all ways? Or is our culture safe, but sending them back to their home country is so dangerous, it should be illegal for humanitarian purposes? It's a weird doublethink, and they get away with it every day. This is Dean in Fort Worth. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Hey, this is commenting about the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Sure.
The Biden administration, both the DOJ and the FBI worked and gave millions of dollars in grants to the Southern Law. In fact, the FBI, one of the first things that Patel did was he separated the FBI from the Southern Law Poverty Law Center because of their one-sided. They were the ones that labeled the white Christians, the Catholics, as the white extremists.
Yeah, and so, I think most of us remember. Let me fill in everyone else because I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure everyone else does. Do y'all remember the reports that came out where the number one terror threat in the United States was determined to be domestic terrorists, probably white, probably veterans, and then also the Moms for Liberty got put on the group, the Family Research Council got put on the hate group. The list of hate groups. So yeah, you're right. Southern Poverty Law Center was embedded within the FBI and Homeland Security or whatever, and being used as a reference for their hate group initiatives. Anyway, go ahead.
But the Biden administration, they were funding it. So now the Biden administration can be directly connected to racial tensions within the U.S.
Yeah, and I think you're putting it very antiseptic. Go ahead and say the truth. The Biden administration took money from you and gave it to the KKK through the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Biden administration took money from black people and then through the Southern Poverty Law Center gave it to Klansmen and to white supremacists. Does that make you feel good, black people? Do you like that? You're still going to vote for Democrat? Some of you are, but some of you've got to start rethinking your entire worldview here. We don't, because look, here's the truth, Dean. Do you hate black people?
No.
No, me not. Me neither. Are you racist?
No.
Yeah, me neither. I know we've probably met some racists disappearing over the horizon, but is it like a regular thing that you see on a daily basis as a racist person?
No.
No, it's such an anomaly that a lady in Houston just got fired for being a cop because she went on a rant against N-words. That's how rare it is. It's in the news because someone was acting racist against people of colors. If it was happening every day, would it be news? Is it news that I walked across the street to the 7-Eleven today unharmed? No. Why? Because that's the most boring thing. It happens all day, every day. It's endemic and just assumed to be part of society. But if it makes news, it's necessarily an anomaly. Paul in Prosper, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hi, James. I'm not surprised by what they did at all. It's a means of fomenting the kind of chaos that they grow on. There won't be any repercussions. The mainstream media will cover it up. Racism should have ended with the election of Barack Obama. But they couldn't let it happen because they would lose their base. If racism is gone, the race industry disappears, and the Democrats lose all their power.
Yeah, well, the race industry isn't a self-sustaining thing. It is there because of the Democrat power grab. And I think about it like this, Paul. If the black vote went 50-50 Republican and Democrat, you realize the Democrats would lose control of almost every major American city. They would no longer be in positions of power in New York. They wouldn't be in positions of power in Dallas or Austin or Houston or New Orleans or Jackson, Mississippi or Memphis or Atlanta or any of the big cities in Alabama, anywhere where people are, black people are a giant part of the population, Detroit, Chicago. These would all immediately turn into red cities. Do you understand how important racism is to their power base?
Well, and more important, they understand that.
Yeah.
That's why they must perpetuate this myth of racism and institutional racism. It's not true, but they keep going at it. And by funding radical right organizations to oppose publicly left organizations, they stir the pot and they make things so much worse.
Here's a dirty little secret. All those super radical white supremacist groups, they're all lefties. They're all socialist and fascist. They're not even right wing. They are just another mutant branch of the same old collectivist left wing ideology that the rest of them share. All right, coming up next on the James Show, there was a raid on a sex and drug warehouse, and it kind of blurs the line between prostitution and pornography, and the legal analyst of the James Show, Jeremy Rosenthal, will break it down for you next on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. So, where is the legal line between prostitution and pornography? I know it's an odd topic, but we got to cover it here. I'm James Parker. You're listening to The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And no, I'm not trying to figure out what to do this weekend. WFAA had the story coming out of North Dallas.
The Dallas Police Department raid happened here on Friday. And in addition, they say that much more than television programming was being produced inside. Space Studios is in a business park on Manana Drive between I-35 and Harry Hines. The Instagram page for the company shows its studio space used for filming movie previews and more. But in an arrest affidavit, Dallas police say that more included the 48 people they found inside, who arrived at the location for consensual sexual intercourse, paid a $35 cover fee to get in, where the owner was using the facility to produce pornography and would host events and people would engage in sexual intercourse while being filmed. The two men arrested included owner Israel Luna, whose 2000 Dodge cargo van was also confiscated because they say it was being used for the filming of pornography too. The owner is charged with the felonies of promotion of prostitution and possession of controlled substances for the marijuana, THC oil, and mushrooms police say they found, and the misdemeanor of operating a sexually oriented business without a license. WFAA did reach the owner by email, who says he's waiting for his attorney's permission before he talks publicly about his business. In Dallas, I'm Kevin Reese.
All right, my next guest is the number one client of the warehouse and legal analyst on the James Show, Jeremy Rosenthal. Welcome back. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend now, Jeremy. My plans are all ruined. But jokes aside here, I've always found this to be a weird legal gray area. If I'm a beautiful woman and someone comes up and pays me for sex and we do the deed and he leaves and I keep the money, that's illegal. That's prostitution. However, if a guy comes up to me, pays me for sex, we do the deed, and somebody films it, then it's called pornography, and that is legal. So we have sort of the gray areas. There are instances where it's legal to pay someone for sex, and it seems to be as long as you're filming it. That just doesn't seem right to me, Jeremy. What am I missing? Yes. End around. Come on, word choice, Jeremy. Anyway, go ahead. Yes. So what do you think? Because if they say that, well, we were filming this and it's for pornographic purposes, they could say like, well, we were just shooting a pilot and we don't have a place to put it yet. I mean, they can come up with some excuse, can't they? See, look, this is so tough for me. Jeremy, can you stick with me through the break? You got time for another segment? Okay, because I only scheduled you for one. Didn't want to make any assumptions there. But look, I'm a libertarian, so this is really tough for me because I don't think there should be prostitution laws. I don't think there should be drug laws. I don't think there should be zoning laws. Now, all this sounds a little gross. All this sounds like something I don't want to participate in. But who is the victim here? Who? And I'll ask that of Jeremy Rosenthal coming up next. And the other question I have, maybe this is for you more so than Jeremy Rosenthal. $35. That sounds a little cheap, doesn't it? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Is there really such thing as a victimless crime? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Now, this is a tough one. If you're just joining us, I'm going to play the news report that started the conversation to begin with, because this happened just up the road from our studios here in Dallas. What was that, like 8 exits up the highway? WFAA has the report on a studio that was making more than just movies.
The Dallas Police Department raid happened here on Friday. And in addition to the drugs and narcotics they say they found inside, they say that much more than television programming was being produced inside. Space Studios is in a business park on Manana Drive between I-35 and Harry Hines. The Instagram page for the company shows its studio space used for filming movie previews and more. But in an arrest affidavit, Dallas police say that more included the 48 people they found inside, who arrived at the location for consensual sexual intercourse, paid a $35 cover fee to get in, where the owner was using the facility to produce pornography and would host events and people would engage in sexual intercourse while being filmed. The 2 men arrested included owner Israel Luna, whose 2000 Dodge cargo van was also confiscated because they say it was being used for the filming of pornography too. The owner is charged with the felonies of promotion of prostitution and possession of controlled substances for the marijuana, THC oil, and mushrooms police say they found, and the misdemeanor of operating a sexually oriented business without a license. WFAA did reach the owner by email, who says he's waiting for his attorney's permission before he talks publicly about his business. In Dallas, I'm Kevin Reese.
All right, so now we continue with my guest, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. So you're the lawyer that gets the call from the owners of the building. What do you do to defend this case, Jeremy? Yeah, I don't think he's going to get out of the zoning charges there. But so how is this different than a sex club? These people that pay a bunch of money to get into a place where they're just having group sex anyway, and it's all consensual. Is that not prostitution? Mm-hmm. What a weird case. Jeremy, you ever had a case like this? Or are you allowed to tell me? That's a safe answer. Well, look, from my point of view, I think it's gross. I wish it didn't exist, but I'm not naive. It's existed in every society going back to the beginning of time. It will probably exist in every society going forward to the end of time. So it's always interesting to see how, man, you can try and fight this, but there's people on both sides. There's always going to be some guy and always going to be some girl willing to do this. And I just have a hard time telling them that they can't do that. All right. The other part I wanted maybe you don't have a strong opinion on this, but if you're going to go to a warehouse and have an adult party in heavy air quotes and all you can eat buffet, and also in air quotes, doesn't it seem kind of low to just pay $35? Like, I don't know what the going rate on is, but do you really want to, go cheap on that? Yeah, like you don't want to go cheap on toilet paper. You don't want to go cheap when you're buying a used car. You don't want to go. I would think you wouldn't want to go cheap on this. All right, thank you very much. We'll just cut it off there. Jeremy Rosenthal, legal analyst at the James Show. Find his work, TexasDefenseFirm.com. TexasDefenseFirm.com. Coming up next, the 10 Commandments law for Texas Classroom has been upheld by the courts thus far. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, we're going to go from something really sinful to something really holy. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Wrapping up the weird topic about the warehouse where they were doing a lot of sex and drugs. I'm not sure if it's all legal. I know the zoning board's probably going to have some issues with it, but the rest of it was it all felt like a gray area to me. Next topic is going to be the 10 Commandments law being upheld in the courts here for Texas classrooms. But right now we go to the phones. Talk to Kathy in Argyle. You're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hey, James. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, because you've made a comment. I listen to you all the time. I love your show. But you comment all the time that you are a Christian, that you're a God follower. And
Yes.
I'm just wondering how you can say that when you're condoning what these places are doing. And I'm saying condoning because of what you said, that, hey, I'm not gonna tell anybody they can't do what they want to do. This is, basically this is America. We should all be able to do whatever we want to do. That particular act goes completely against Scripture. 1 Corinthians 6:18. I mean, there's more than this also. So you've got to pick which side of the fence you're on. You cannot claim to be a Christian and then say, hey, these people that are doing this because this is what they want to do, I don't get into that, but they do. No. We Christians have to stand up and say what's wrong. And we base everything on Scripture because that's what God has left us. He's not Jesus in man form on earth anymore.
Well, can I answer real quick?
Word.
I don't know if you're done yet. I hate to interrupt because you sound like you're on a nice little roll there. But listen, I am not condoning it as in I think that's a lifestyle I would recommend for my children or your children or anyone. I don't. And I also make a separation between things that are sins and things that are illegal. We all agree that adultery is a sin, but should adultery be illegal? Should you go to jail or face charges for cheating on your spouse? Absolutely not. And in my book, I'm not telling anyone else how they should have their statecraft policies.
That's not a law.
I know, but should it be a law? That's what I'm saying. Should it be a law? Just because it's sinful doesn't mean it should be illegal. For me, the illegal part comes in when there's a victim, when you're screwing someone out of money or something else. And I probably should have used a better verb there. But not everything that is a sin should be illegal. Not everything that is not Christian should be illegal in my book.
Right, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what you said, that you were saying, you know what, they do this kind of stuff, and I'm not going to tell them they're bad for doing that, because who am I to say that? This is America. We should be able to do what we want to do. That's the whole purpose of our country being the greatest country, because of the freedom that it's offered to anyone.
I agree with that freedom. If you want to be a prostitute, you should have the freedom to be a prostitute if you want. If you want to be a John that buys the services of these women, I think you should have the freedom to do what you want. I would recommend against it. That's not my code. That's not my values. That's not what my life paradigm instructs me to do. But who am I to tell other people? I could tell them that I think it's wrong.
Because it's a sin.
Okay, it's a sin. Now, if they don't agree with,
to be a Christian.
I know, but
to be a Christian.
I know, but if something is a sin, that doesn't mean I go send the police after them to enforce my Christian values. If they want to go learn the hard way, or if they don't want to accept the word or the truth that their life would be better off if they accepted different values, then that's
I'm talking about you using your voice like you're doing now. You could change the way you're saying this, but see, you're not. You're saying, you know what? Let them go ahead and do this. You know, who am I? Who am I to say that this is something that shouldn't be done, or you shouldn't be doing?
No. It's not who am I to say something against it. Listen. I think you misunderstand my position here. I will speak out against it, but I draw the line by sending the cops to go stop them from doing it. That's where I draw the line. I'll speak out against it. I'll use my words. I'll recommend against it. Ladies, you shouldn't be prostitutes. Was that so hard? So now you and I should be on the same team here, but you still act like we're not.
Because why though? You finished that sentence. You shouldn't be prostitutes because God says it's a sin. And they may not know God, but I guarantee you they'll never forget that line as they go through life and things happen and they catch diseases or they hurt one of their family members because their family member found out what they're doing. I guarantee you, that's all you got to say. Those are very strong words. Hey, you shouldn't be doing this because it's a sin.
Okay,
The
prostitutes,
reason
you
I'm
shouldn't be doing it because
as
it's a sin.
Christian-
Are you happy now, Kathy?
I'm just saying, I'm trying to say to you as a Christian, those are the words that you should want to say to people. Hey guys, don't be doing that. The Bible says not to do that. You're throwing it off on the Bible, which is the most wonderful thing we have because that's what God left us. He left us scripture to live our life by and to proclaim it by to others so that someday if they haven't found God and have chosen to be a God follower, that maybe those words will be in their head enough to where someday they'll change sooner, if not later.
See, Kathy, I think your real argument here is you have a cognitive dissonance because you and I both agree that it's immoral. And the problem that you have is you think it should be illegal and I don't. Now make the case.
No.
You don't think prostitution should be illegal?
I mean, if you want to ask me because of my
Just yes or
spiritual
no.
conviction,
Just yes or no.
Yes. Yeah,
Prostitution should be illegal?
because the Bible calls it. No, I follow the Bible, James. That's the number one thing.
I do too.
Okay, well then you wouldn't be. I don't think you would be wanting them to hear you, these prostitutes or whoever else is doing things out there that are just totally against Scripture. I don't think you would want people to hear you. I don't think you would want
Look,
to hear
Kathy,
people to hear you saying
you're
it
just
like that.
you're just treat it as any other sin. Like we're not supposed to be drunkards, right? Do I need to get out here and say we need to make alcohol illegal and I condemn anyone that's drinking alcohol and you shouldn't because it's a sin and you're ruining your life and you should listen to me? Or should I just be like, look, you can drink to excess if you want to. I would recommend against it, but you're an adult, and if you want to live that sort of lifestyle, then you can face the consequences of your own poor decisions. That's where I'm at. Not everything that's a sin should be illegal. Not everything that's in the Bible I have to preach so hard against that I can't have some sort of legal opening for people to disagree with me. And I'm definitely not sending the cops to go enforce my Christian edicts, even for what the New Testament says against prostitution. They never said go send the cops to go arrest them all. They didn't say go send the cops to go arrest all the Johns. Anyway, we're kind of gliding seamlessly into our next topic, also religiously related. The Ten Commandments law for Texas classrooms has been upheld, WFAA.
Federal Appeals Court upheld the state's Ten Commandments law. Senate Bill 10 requires donated copies of the Ten Commandments to be displayed in public schools. The law took effect last September, but federal judges issued an injunction. The ACLU plans to appeal this decision.
Yeah, here we go again with this is fun because it is setting up so many good precedents that I am going to be pulling audio clips from this storyline as it is progressing from 2025 through 2026. And I guarantee you sound bites are going to be used from this story for future incidences that are anti-Christian. You just wait. This is working out to be a beautiful setup. And I'll explain next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, are you in pain right now? Do you wake up kind of stiff? Some of you woke up and you decide if you're going to work out or go jogging based on your amount of pain. Do you have knee pain? Do you have ankle pain? Do you have foot pain? Do you have back pain? Where is your pain? Because if you think that you just have to live with an acceptable life as a part of getting older, I've got some good news for you. There's a lot of people who were in your boat who went to QC Kinetics, tried some of their new revolutionary space age technology treatments, and they've gotten relief, and they have a new pain-free future that they didn't even know was possible. And QC Kinetics is great if you have the same issues I do. I can't miss work. I can't have downtime. I don't have time to have surgery. I don't have time to get put to sleep and sewn open and put together and have recovery time. I don't have time for physical therapy. I don't have time for follow-ups. I got a couple jobs. I have a wife. I have 4 kids, and I've got a lot of responsibilities to juggle. And QC Kinetics had me in and out in 30 minutes. There was no cutting me open. It was almost painless. I do have a little bit of a fear of needles, but that wasn't an obstacle either. And they'll get you in and out. No downtime, no recovery time, no stitches, no drugs, no hospital stays, no embarrassing gown with the back flying open. So find out more. The consultation is free. Call QC Kinetics 972-972-8610. 972-972-8610. Well, we got the 10 Commandments on the wall in classrooms in one story and all kinds of freaks in the other story. I'm James Barker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Now, I understand the zoning angle, for the sexual-oriented business that was going on up there. But the libertarian in me doesn't like zoning laws. The libertarian in me doesn't like drug laws. The libertarian in me doesn't like any vice laws, prostitution or pornography laws or whatever. So for me, while that situation is gross, unethical, I would recommend against it. I've never been a part of it. Hopefully never will be a part of anything like that. I have a hard time even thinking that should be illegal. Who's the victim? However, my way of arranging society is not in effect, so I got it. That's illegal. But you have people on the other story here, 10 Commandments being forced on the walls in Texas public school classrooms. Fight against that tooth and nail. It's a weird society we live in, isn't it? Now, again, libertarian, I don't think there should be public schools. But if we are going to have public schools and tax dollars are going to go to them, and the government wants to put something on the wall, well, guess what? You've already lost that argument. The government gets to put on the wall or in the curriculum whatever they decide. This is the devil's deal that you make when you agree with socialism, when you agree with public schools, to have public schools. So if you're just going to argue about the nuance of what the content is of the posters on the wall, y'all are getting into some real finicky, namby-pamby stuff. And to find out that you're fighting against the 10 Commandments, one of the least controversial things you could possibly put on a wall, that's really bizarre coming from the people that want the sex books in the elementary school libraries. They don't like to talk about that too much, do they? Anyway, so the callers are going to be all over the place. To the phones we go. Brian in Dallas, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yeah, and James.
Hey, Brian.
So I just wanted to review your last caller. I have basically two words. Jimmy Swaggart. Knowing Scripture does not mean you're not going to commit sin.
Well, I don't think that's what Kathy believed.
Well, no, she's saying that if prostitutes knew Scripture and we preach Scripture to them, that they wouldn't be out prostituting.
Oh.
Scripture is not going to change their life situations.
Well, it might change somebody's life situation, but yeah.
The majority of people that are prostituting are aware of Scripture and that it's a sin. They're doing it because of the life situation. They would rather be doing something else.
Yeah, the way it makes most sense to me is that's their least bad option. I'm not saying it's a good option. I'm not saying it's preferable, but apparently in their mind, all their other options are even worse than that. So,
correct.
All right. Well, thanks for the assist, Brian.
Jimmy Swaggart, he knows adultery is a sin.
I have sinned against you, Lord. Wasn't he from Louisiana? Wasn't he one of those guys? Let's go to Jason in Dallas. You're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of him about the lady who called questioning your Christianity. It says in the Bible, God gave man free will. And if he's not going to force us at violence to obey his laws, who am I to enforce my opinion on that?
Well, hang on now. Well, see, now this is where my religion and my libertarian actually flow together. I'll tell you where the line is when there's a victim. Who am I to tell them that murder's wrong? Well, that dead guy over there probably deserves a little bit of justice. That's why I have a problem with vice crimes. Who's the victim in gambling? Who's the victim in prostitution? Who's the victim in drug arrest and drug laws? And so that's where I draw the line. Whenever you impose a cost involuntarily on a third party, that's where I draw the line.
I agree with you fully. It also says don't judge. So would there be a law against her judging you?
Well, I think that means Kathy doesn't have the ability to judge my standing in the eternal. But I get your point. No, we're still allowed to judge. Hell, I judge for 3 hours a day on this show. All the things that are coming across the TV and social media feed. I'm allowed to judge. That's for sure. But I get it. No, and again, this is a conversation that happens over and over the last 24 years of talk radio. A lot of people just haven't really thought to themselves, where do they draw the line between immoral and illegal? And I love this discussion because it starts with adultery. We all agree adultery is wrong, but we also all agree that it shouldn't be illegal, as in you shouldn't get fined or get a ticket or go to jail or go to prison for committing adultery. And while the Bible says and Christianity says and pretty much every religion says adultery is wrong, we all agree that it shouldn't be illegal, which establishes the precedent that not everything that is immoral should be illegal. So now we have to talk about where is that line. Tammy in Fort Worth, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hi there.
Hi.
Yes. I have my own opinion. Whether it's wrong or not, I'm probably very likely not going to change it. And I feel that consenting adults, to me, in that equation or in that dynamic, there are no victims. They're having a good time. And they're probably having sex so good that they feel compelled to pay for it. And I don't believe that Christianity or even the conversation about religion needs to be brought up, because if that's the case, we're going to have to open up a whole bunch of cans of worms. And it's not going to be just about prostitution. We're going to just go across the whole board then, because prostitution is a to me, in my opinion, as far as I understand, is a consensual act between a two adults. There are no victims. One wants a service. One is rendering that service in exchange for a monetary value or for that purpose. That's all it is to me. And I don't think it needs to be done out in the open, in public, in front of children, the elderly, next door, around the corner from a school. There has to be some respect in that, just like there's respect in everything we do. Maybe what we do behind closed doors shouldn't be a topic in everybody's mouth, I guess.
Well, Tammy,
what consenting adults do behind closed doors.
I know, good
whether
metaphor
it's paid
there.
for or whether it's not.
You know, you sound really analytical, almost antiseptic about this. Have you worked in a sexually oriented business before?
Yes.
Yeah, I could hear it, and that's all right. That's not.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed of that.
Oh, the studio audience approves, Tammy.
I don't need the applause or anything because I don't pat myself on the back for it. But it was something in the past that I chose to do for various reasons, whatever those personal reasons were, and there was no harm to anyone. And I chose to do it with a person who was willing to pay me for a service that I rendered, and that was the end of that.
I think
that was the end of that.
I think a lot of people don't realize that if you made it legal, it would take a lot of the seediness out of it.
I understand that too, James, and I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, James, but does it also have something to do with the fact that it's not taxed? Is it because maybe this country or the government or tax laws or however I'm maybe not be saying it correctly, but if it's taxed, I wonder would we all have a different opinion about it than we do right now without it being taxed or without it being a legal work or occupation that a lady or man decides to do.
Tammy in Fort Worth, if we could figure out how to implement a proper hooker tax, we would probably erase the national debt within 5 years. Thank you very much. That's Tammy in Fort Worth. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Ilhan Omar has no explanation on her weird wealth going way up and then way down. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Speaking of morality, let's check in with Ilhan Omar. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. The two topics we've been juggling is the 10 Commandments in classrooms. That got upheld by a court, the Texas law saying we have to have a poster in all of our classrooms. And I was just juxtaposing that with the story that came out of North Dallas where some guys had a warehouse where there was all kinds of sex and drugs going on, and they were filming it, so it was pornography. And I mean, they're caught up on drug charges and maybe prostitution charges, but zoning charges as well thrown in there. And we were just trying to draw the line between unethical and illegal. Look, there was a little religion thrown in there. And I'll update you on Ilhan Omar in just a second. But first, let's go to Michael in Dallas. You're next up on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, Michael. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to repeat the last lady and just say I agree with her. I'm a very religious man, and I believe in God, and I would never do that. But I don't see anything wrong with prostitution. I mean, I don't think it's
legally
right,
speaking, we all understand that it's a
legally
terrible lifestyle and you don't want your daughter to have that be her chosen profession, but legally speaking, yes.
correct. I don't think it should be something that somebody should be fined or sent to prison for. I mean, if you want to do that, that's your choice. But I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be illegal.
No, I see it a lot like owning an Android phone. It doesn't make you necessarily a bad person, but if you're in this position in life, your life's just not going the way you had hoped. Like there's some other things that are going wrong to put you in this situation. No one would just rationally choose that lifestyle.
Well, I wouldn't think they would. No, I mean maybe they would, but if they did, it's what they chose.
Well, it's
I don't
also
agree with it.
Look, I have a hard time just wrapping my head around it. I have to be very legal and just sort of black and white letter of the law about this because I don't get it at all. Like if you have to pay for the consent, doesn't that take all the fun out of it? Like isn't all the fun of that the fact that this woman like actually desires you? And I don't even want to do it when Miss Parker's like, I'm not really in the mood, but we can do it anyway. No, I don't. No, I don't need your pity. So I don't get it to begin with, right? And on the other side, like from the woman's point of view, I don't get this either because, Michael, how awesome would that be if you're just some 22-year-old guy trying to find your way out in the world and women keep coming up to you offering you money for sex? Like, wouldn't that blow your mind? Like, how did I get so lucky?
Well, I wouldn't think that would be lucky if I'm having to sell my body for sex.
Well, no, you could turn it down, but you would think, like, what kind of awesome hunk am I? I must be really attractive. I must be really desirable. This is kind of, thank you for the offer, ladies. No, but no thank you. But wouldn't that be like a huge ego boost? I mean, how rarely do guys get compliments anyway? Like my wife asked me one time, she's like, how rare is it that you get compliments? And I tell her, so one time I was dating this girl a long time ago. She was going to SMU, and she said I was the third hottest guy that she knew personally. That was the year 2001. I get compliments so rare, I remember compliments from 25 years ago. That's how rare it is. All right, let's get your Ilhan Omar update. And thank you, Michael in Dallas. Here's your update from Ilhan Omar. There was a lady who is a reporter with Lindell TV. She catches up with her in the hallway, and listen to just how smarmy and mean and sarcastic Ilhan Omar gets really quick, because the story is she filed her reports, her financial reports, and all of a sudden her wealth jumped up from like $65 of net worth to $30 million of net worth. And people pointed that out. They're like, there's no way that can be legal. And so then she amended her filing, and now she's only worth like a few $1,000s again. Oh, there was just an error? You just had a boo-boo in the math?
The last time I spoke to you, you said that I was stupid for asking you about your financial disclosure, but there's some discrepancies on there. Would you like to explain them? How did you make such a big mistake on it?
Absolutely, you're stupid for asking me anything.
I am?
Yes.
Well, what about the American people who are wondering how you made such a big
I have
mistake?
explained to the American people.
What's the explanation?
I have given them the explanation.
Do you want to tell our viewers? Because they're.
I don't want to tell you, Jack. How about that?
Okay.
I don't want to tell you Jack squat, but the other S word. How about that? Go to jail. Go to jail, and as soon as she gets out, if she gets out, send her back to Somalia. Why are we tolerating this? Of course she ripped us off. It's Is that what they do? Is that just the Somalian way of life? Go to America and start ripping us off? Because there seems to be quite a few of them that have done it this far. And I know it's not everyone. I'm just saying it's a weird pattern they've got going on there. It's not a brand that they should continue. All right. Thank you very much for hanging out today. Stick around. Coming up next, Mark Levin. If you need more James Show action in the meantime, I highly recommend you go check out the podcast whenever you're sitting around listening to podcasts. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.